Hello and welcome to Music with Mason. My name is Mason Fall. I'm here joined with the lead singer of the famous Iowan band NonGrata, the one and only Joe Gephart. How are you doing today, Joe?
Hey man, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. So just to start off, NonGrata is an alternative metal band located in Iowa City. On Spotify, you guys have over 15,000 streams on Spotify, along with 1.5 active listeners, and your song, Beast and Me, gained over 2.5 thousand streams in the first week. How was that? As just right there.
Yeah, man, that was wild. Our first song that really we started seeing some really crazy numbers like that for us was Left in the Dark. And that was one we put out, right after COVID kind of got over. And we were finally able to start playing live music again. So to come out of about a year without being able to do anything, seeing numbers like that was really, really great for us. And then more recently with this song, The Beast and Me, our most recent one, like that just completely blew up for us. We've got a lot of really, really great feedback. I think stylistically we made a lot of different decisions moving forward with the way we write songs and kind of the sounds that we were really going for. And I think we finally sort of nailed it with The Beast and Me. And we put out like an official video. In the past, we've done other videos for songs and stuff like that. But this time around, we worked with Chip from the band 5am. And he does really, really great videos. And he's worked with lots of other friends of ours in the music industry. And so we kind of pulled the trigger and got like a video made. And just the responses that we've got from everybody and seeing all the numbers rolling in, it's been really exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the song. I mean, it's pure metal. And I mean, not a lot of kids my age these days really like pure metal. Absolutely. So
Thanks, man.
We also know that you are also attending Heavy Xmas to play alongside bands with Dark Agenda, Overthrow, and even Worst Impressions, who we also interviewed.
Yeah.
So how did you end up getting on board with that?
So this is going to be headlining like Christmas for us. It's at Wildwood in Iowa City. It's right outside Iowa City off the interstate. It's an excellent barbecue restaurant. They do shows there probably 5 nights a week. The staff is incredible. And we played a lot of shows there, doing a bunch of opening slots for some national touring acts. We played with bigger bands like Nonpoint, got to play with Nita Strauss. We did Norma Jean's show. And so usually when we play Wildwood, it's opening for bigger acts. And we've done one headlining show there in the past that went really, really well. And working with Metro Live, sort of the promoter for this type of music in Eastern Iowa, and then the venue itself, like they kind of pitched us the idea of doing a headlining Christmas slot there. And so they had offered up a couple bands to get on the bill, and then we had a couple other ideas. Dark Agenda are like longtime friends of ours. We played probably close to 10 to 15 shows with those guys over the last few years. So they're really close with us. Worst Impressions is a newer band, I should say, from Iowa City. And I've never gotten to play a show with them, but we're just super impressed with like what they do. And they've got a really great following, and they're making a lot of noise on their own. So it's really nice to see other acts come out of Iowa City that have a similar potential. And really, you can tell they're serious about what they do, and they've got their own thing going. And then there's a few other bands as well playing. Overthrow is going to be on it. We've done a couple shows with them. They've been mutual friends of ours for a long time. And then the Damn Gallaghers, which is another band that we've never gotten to share the stage with, but it's going to be a really great time. It's going to be a great show. And we don't get to headline Wildwood very often, so we're going to get to play, a little bit longer set than we're used to playing, and we're going to bust out some songs that people haven't gotten the opportunity to hear live in a long time, and that kind of thing. So we're super stoked.
All right. So we also know that you guys recently played at the Cooler in Rock Falls, along with bands like Alborn and So-Called Saints. How was that as an experience?
That was one of probably my top 5 favorite shows of the year, to be honest with you, man.
All right.
We get to play with Alborn a lot, and we're so grateful for that because not only are they like really cool dudes and we love hanging out with them, but I think I speak for everybody in the band when we can honestly say that like we're also fans of their music. Um, like for instance, my Spotify Wrapped came out this year, and two of their songs were my top 5 songs of the year. So the fact that I get to call those guys like really good friends of mine, but we also get to work together professionally, and I love their music. Like any chance we get to play with Allborn, we're going to jump on that show every single time because they've become sort of like our best friends in the scene right now. And So Called Saints, that's a band I've heard a lot about. That's just our first time getting to play with them. They've got a really unique sound. They kill it on stage. They do a great job, and I'm sure we'll be sharing the stage with those guys in the future as well. But you know, middle of the week shows sometimes don't really pop off. And this is the night before Thanksgiving. I know Auburn plays the Cooler every Blackout Wednesday every year. They play the same show there. And they asked us to hop on it this year, and it place was packed. You know, it sounded good. Got to talk to a lot of really cool people. But no, it was a great time. So
Yeah, totally agree with that. So we also know you got to play at Rock 180's Chaos for a Cause, which helped raise over $10,000 for hungry Iowans out there. And I mean, that's an amazing goal to think about. So how did you end up getting in touch with Rock 180 about, you know, being a part of this?
Yeah, man. So this is our third year playing Chaos for a Cause. The band Gravecore, who I don't know if you're familiar at all, but
you know,
you're not get in touch with those guys.
You know, it's funny. We actually interviewed them too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So it's really all that fame goes to Gravecore, right? They put in so much freaking work. Cody, our bass player, and he's kind of in charge of everything, man. And he works literally year round. Event put together, and those guys put so much freaking time into that event. And they've been super cool. They've invited us back every year that they've done it, and it's always an amazing experience. It's super cool of Rock 108 being, you know, the bigger rock station on this side of the state and in the Midwest overall. You know, for them to hop on it too and sponsor it and get a bunch of other sponsors to chip in for a really great cause is amazing. $10,000 blew my mind. You know, every little bit on what their goal is, and every year we seem to hit it. And so, like, we're fully expecting, you know, going forward, Chaos for a Cause is going to get bigger and better every single year. And it's always a great event. People come out. We do a giant costume contest. I think this year the grand prize is $1,000 for the first place costume contest winner. And it's all, like I said, for a really great cause, getting to feed that many people. Just seeing the number 10,000, you know, and when we look at it, and it's like these were all local bands on the bill. You know what I mean? Like these aren't national touring acts that are coming through and doing it. These are like bands from our area giving back to our communities and the people who tune in and who listen and follow us. So to be able to give back in that kind of way is one of the most rewarding things we can do. And we love that event every single year. And look forward to doing it in the future. It's going to be awesome. So,
you know, that's what I really like about the event is that they don't really ask these huge artists from out of our state. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of awesome artists outside of our state, but it's also good to get something from our community to play at these awesome events.
Well, and I think it gives a lot of bands from this area the opportunity to put on a show of that level. You know, I mean, Gravecore is an extremely theatrical band, and as you know, a band of a similar level, like we don't really get the opportunity if we're hopping on an opening slot for some touring acts. You know, sometimes we're given a 30-minute set with no sound check, and there's no time to set up any of your extra theatrics and stuff. So for them, like they really get the opportunity to bust everything out, and they have all their props and all their light show, and like that for them makes their show so much more than just, you know, hopping up and playing a few songs for 30 minutes. So they really get the chance to show everybody, like, hey, we're a serious band too, right? We may not be touring the country and doing this as our day job, you know what I mean? But they get to, like, really show, like, hey, there's good acts and there's good music right here. You don't need to spend $50 to $100 on a concert ticket to go see one band that you really like when you could, like, these bands are right here in your backyard. And um, with the good band, like, you just can't beat it. So, love Gravecore, love those guys. We appreciate everything that they do for us so much. And yeah, every year is an amazing experience.
Dude, I agree with that 100% word for word. We have so much good talent here in Iowa that it shocked me to see how many bands and artists and musicians that I've been in contact with. These guys, like, they'll give you 110% no matter what the concert looks like. It's honestly super talented and super awesome to see these cool and local bands just playing their heart out at every event. It's amazing to see. So
yeah, man, and that's really what it's all about. Like, we're still doing it because we love it. You know what I mean? Like, if we were doing it for the money, there's not much there. You know what I mean? So, like, these bands that we play shows with and the local bands in this area, like, they're doing it purely for the joy of it, and they love doing it, and they love seeing people's reactions. And so, shout out to the fans and stuff too. That like, they repeatedly come out to these shows, and they're so supportive. The scene in Western Illinois, Eastern Iowa, and the crowds that we're playing for, man, like, we see a lot of the same people come out to every single one of our shows. And like I said, we're not a big band, we're not touring all over the country or whatever, but to have a dedicated fan base in this area, like, really proves to us that, like, what we're doing is worthwhile, not just for us, but for other people too. And to see other people back that is just one of the most gratifying feelings.
Totally agree. I can totally agree with the fact that we have so many good supporters out there. So, continuing on, I guess we're going to take a huge step back. So how exactly did NonGrata start?
Yeah, man. So I've sung my entire life. And in high school, there really weren't a lot of people. I graduated from a really small school, 60 people in my graduating class. And there weren't really a lot of other kids my age trying to start a band or anything like that. And so for me personally, like, the first band I was in was like a bunch of my mom's friends who, like, had a cover band, and they needed a singer, and, like, I showed up with these guys who were in their 40s and just, like, jammed, and that's really where I, like, cut my teeth. And so when I moved to college, and I went to the University of Iowa, right? Like, my goal was, like, okay, like, now there's a real opportunity here to get in touch with some people who are like-minded. They're the same age as me. Like, they really want to pursue this dream of doing music and stuff like that. And my problem was I didn't really know where to start. I didn't know a lot of people or anything like that. So I hit up the old Craigslist. And lo and behold, there was a posting on there, pretty big. It was like, hey, drummer and guitar player looking to start a band. Here are some bands that influence us. And my first reaction was, these are probably middle-aged dudes who are just trying to play covers or whatever. And whenever I pulled the trigger, and I showed up the first time, I never met these guys in person, and the guitar player walked out, and I saw him, and I was like, he's the same age as me. Like, let's go. And so we jammed a couple covers the first couple times that we got together, and then finally I sort of sat down with them, and I was like, look, cover songs are cool, and I'm all for that, but, like, I'm really into doing original stuff, and I think, like, Iowa City at the time, I was, like, really lax in, like, an original heavy band. You have your hardcore bands and your deathcore bands, but there wasn't really any bands in the area doing the music that I like to do. And they were super down for that. So while we were all in college, we got together and just started writing and recording and trying to meet people and get in touch with venues and that kind of thing. And then obviously, college comes to an end. People get real jobs, people move, and whatever. So in end of 2019, we kind of went our separate ways, for better or for worse. We had a little bit of some issues with the lineup. Our original drummer got a really, really great job out of state. Our guitar player got a really great job out of state, and so we had to kind of, and our bass player had a kid, right? And so that kind of took over his life, and so I wasn't really ready to give it up. I think what we had built so far had a lot more to offer, and so they kind of gave me their blessing to find new members and whatever. So then I went out and luckily I met some people, and kind of rebuilt the band, and we were reborn in a sense, and we've been going strong since then. So that's sort of how the band started, and I don't think we're slowing down any. So that's a really good feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not easy having to, release the original members of the band, but I'm sure you're having a great time with these new guys.
Yeah, man. I mean, they're my best friends, and that's what's really great about being in a band. The first time we started the band, I didn't know those guys, so we got to know each other through playing music, and I feel like that bond is now stronger because we were able to share that experience with each other, and we kind of find our commonalities, and we're able to grow and evolve, and being in a smaller band, and doing our local thing, like life happens, life gets in the way, and sometimes things change, and change always doesn't have to be a bad thing, and I think it's healthy, and I think as long as we have people in this band who want to take it to that next level and want to be productive and keep going with it, then there's no reason the band needs to slow down or to stop. So.
Yeah, 100%. As long as everyone has the same passion and thrive for the same goal, I mean, you can't really be stopped.
Yep.
So continuing on, how long would you say, I mean, I know you told us you sang your whole life, but who really taught you how to sing?
I mean, music has always been really prevalent just from a family standpoint, I had two uncles growing up that were really into hard rock and metal, so I remember getting Metallica's And Justice for All album on CD. I got that for Christmas when I was like 10, and that kind of busted open my floodgates, and all my uncles really pushing me to listen to new stuff and turning me on to new bands. But like also, my parents both are into very different styles of music. But music has always been around in my life. But I was always in choir in school and that kind of thing, and that's really where I got into singing and found my interest and stuff like that. But then singing along really with some of my favorite bands is what made me kind of decide like, hey, like I can do this. So that's really like how I started singing and stuff like that. So.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we all got to start somewhere. And choir, I mean, is a really common place for people to start learning how to sing, but true passion for singing is even stronger than that. So,
absolutely.
Do you have a favorite musician or band? I mean, you already told us Metallica played a huge role on you when you got the CD for Christmas, but is there any other bands you would give credit to?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we could do a whole segment on this. For me, I've got a few really big ones, right? So being from Iowa and really being into heavy music, it's hard not to give credit to Slipknot.
Mm-hmm.
And Corey Taylor specifically. I mean, his vocal style is something that I latched onto really early in my singing career. I've always loved both Stone Sour and Slipknot. Were huge bands for me when I was first starting out. Papa Roach was like the first rock concert I ever went to, and getting to see that energy on stage. Like when I saw that concert, like I was looking at the stage going, that's what I want to do. Like that's it, And so they were huge for me. Alice in Chains is one of those bands that my mom listened to all the time growing up, and so their music has always been around. Lane Staley is one of the easily on my Mount Rushmore of singers. The power in his voice and his songwriting and just his own unique style really inspired me a lot. More recently, I've really been into bands like Seven Dust and Sleep Token, Bad Omens, things like that that are really kind of blowing up and getting some more mainstream attention, So I think our tastes change as we get older and as we evolve as people. But for me, like Slipknot and Alice in Chains are two bands that like will forever hold a huge pedestal in my mind, making me want to do this.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Slipknot, one of the best Iowan bands out there. I mean, it's not really a whole lot.
One of the best bands out there, right? Like, period.
Yeah.
Like, getting to see an act like that come from Iowa, and honestly, their music's great, and I don't know if anybody can really argue against that. But getting to see people from this Midwest state that really at large doesn't get a lot of it, right? Like not a lot of bands or artists from Iowa really ever break out of their local scene. And so um, to see a band get to the levels that they're at, like they're headlining festivals all over the world. And for me, being a nobody kid from Iowa, like getting to see that like that's possible, that was just as influential as their music was.
Yeah, exactly. They broke out and they just jammed and they do what they love, and it's incredible to see how far they went. So for these next few questions, I want to see if they're actually facts or not, and they're kind of interesting questions. So,
okay.
Who is Waffles?
So Waffles is our buddy Scott's dog. He has, I think he's got like 5 or 6 corgis now. He can't seem to keep them separated, so they keep reproducing. But I think he's got 5, maybe 6 corgis. He's got a giant Saint Bernard. He's got a pit bull. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, and we practice at his house. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, so we could be as loud as we want or whatever. And those corgis are always around, running around, being dogs. And so Waffles is sort of like a band mascot at this point.
Yeah, because he looks really good in that hat. I'll just be honest.
Looks great.
So,
it's making our merch look awesome.
You got to play with Josie Scott from Saliva?
Yep, just about a month ago now. That was a really cool show. That show was originally supposed to happen last spring, and they had some scheduling issues and had to reschedule. But it was cool, man. I didn't really know what to expect. I know he was one of those artists who hadn't been doing it for a long time, and just within the last year or so, came back out, and I was really impressed, man. Like he's still got it, and getting to hear some of those that I've been hearing my entire life live, and getting to be on that bill was super cool too.
Yeah. So I also saw that you won a vote to get to be able to play at Mississippi Valley Fairgrounds, and we've already discussed this, but I mean, I used to live in the Quad Cities. I'm currently in college right now, but like, how is it playing at Mississippi Valley Fair?
So, it's a little bit different of a story. So that vote on Facebook was to get into a battle of the bands. And if you won the battle of the bands, you got to play the Mississippi Valley Fair. And we've done that. We've done the same battle of the bands. I think at that point we've done it 3 times. And every single time we played it, we came up just short of first place. And there was a lot of flaws with that whole system as well. We don't really need to get into it on air or anything like that. And I'm not going to badmouth anybody. But I think especially this last one, man, like the crowd response when we played was huge. Even voting aside, we had a lot more votes than anybody else on there. And so just seeing that reaction of people on social media supporting us that way was amazing. But I really think when we played, we left it all up there on stage, and the crowd response was amazing, live. And we got a bunch of really good feedback from people who had never heard of us. They did a rock battle and a country battle on the same day, and I had people who were there for the country battle come up to us afterwards, and they gave us the whole, like, I'm not really into rock music, but you guys were really impressive. Like, I really liked your stuff. And so getting to hear that from people who don't even listen to that kind of music is always super cool. But we had friends that were in the battle of the bands too, and like there's no bad blood between any of the bands or anything like that. Like I love the band who won, High Five Sinners. Like big shout out to them. They got a really excellent opportunity, and they got to open for 3 Days Grace at the Mississippi Valley Fair, which is huge. Another band that was on it, Elysian from Des Moines. We did a short run of shows, like our first kind of tour this summer, and so those guys are still really, really close friends of ours. Love those guys to death. So there's no bad blood between bands or anything like that. But just as far as like the battle of the bands thing goes, I think we finally got to a point now where like we don't need to really rely on band competitions anymore. And what we've realized after doing so many battles of the bands and coming up short is like really what ends up happening in events like that is it just sort of drives a wedge between the scene. because unfortunately it ends up being a lot of times a popularity contest, and it's all about who you know. When really all these bands should be working together, and all these bands should be booking shows together and cultivating the scene, and getting more people out to events. And so to do a battle of the bands for something like that, like we're kind of over it at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that, because you shouldn't have to compete with these other bands that have a similar passion as yours. I mean, you should be, and having a bigger concert with even more bands instead of just picking the favorites. So,
well, and that's really what it's about. I mean, the Battle of the Bands has always been around, right? And it's really a show of who can get the biggest crowd, who can play the best. And the thing with music, man, is like it's subjective. You know what I mean? Like everybody's got different tastes, and so to get people to sit on a platform and judge each band, like it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the grand scheme of things. And the week after the Battle of the Bands, like we played a show with High Five Sinners, who won. And like again, there was no bad blood between the bands at all. Like I love those guys to death. That was an awesome opportunity for them. We were the best. And really, like there's no reason that something like that should divide the scene or divide the band.
Oh.
Drive a wedge between bands in the scene. We should all be working together, and we should all be, trying to cultivate that family aspect of it. And I think a lot of the bands in this area do that really, really well. And I think Eastern Iowa, they always refer to Iowa nice. You know what I mean? But I think that really shows through when we're looking at bills and who we're playing shows with and stuff like that. Like we show up at a show and all the bands on the bill, like they're friends. At the end of the day, like we're not trying to compete against my best friends. We're just trying to build the scene. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, we should all be working together instead of, picking favorites these days. So what is the Rust Belt?
The Rust Belt is a venue that opened just a couple years ago in Moline. It's bigger than like your everyday, but it's smaller than like a U.S. Cellular Center or a Mark or anything like that. I don't know the capacity off the top of my head, but you can pack a lot of people in there. And I've seen a number of shows there. They get a lot of like some of those more mid-tier and even like upper-tier acts. 3 Days Grace is played there. I saw Seven Dust there. They get a lot of really good bands to come through. So it's an amazing venue.
So, do you like to fish?
I love fishing, dude. Yeah, one of my favorite hobbies.
So, do you remember exactly what your biggest catch was, or do you have like a memory of like a really big catch you got?
So a couple years ago, I fish in the Iowa River a lot. It's the river that runs right through campus in Iowa City, and it's about 5 minutes away from my house. So I'm really close. I get to go down there a lot. But I snagged an Asian carp a couple years ago that was like close to 40 pounds on a setup that I should not have been catching 40-pound fish on. And I was fully expecting like my hook to snap off or my line to break. And I'm not kidding you. I fought this fish for like 30 minutes and finally got it in. And somebody else had to help me like pull it out of the water because it was flopping and going nuts or whatever. But Asian carp are sort of an invasive species, so they kill off a lot of the other wildlife and drive away a lot of the game fish that people are after. But as far as big fish, well, that's definitely the biggest one I've ever caught.
That's crazy. 40 pounds? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was nuts. I was fishing with line I was fishing with 20-pound test. So there's no reason that fish should have stayed on there, but somehow it did.
What a miracle. Oh my goodness. So why exactly were you at the University of Iowa? Like, what was your major?
So I actually majored in history. History is my main major, and then I got an education degree, and I'm actually a high school history teacher now.
Really? Oh man.
Yeah, that's my gig. That's my main gig. So.
Oh man, like I'm sure you'll be the coolest teacher. Because
It's actually really cool, man. And I was a little worried about it, not to lie or anything like that. Like I was really worried when teaching that, in the face of education and parents and all that, they were going to be sort of apprehensive about having this rock singer teach their kids or whatever. But in fact, like the opposite has been true the whole time. Like I've had students show up with their parents at shows before. I've had other teachers show up at shows, and they're extremely supportive. And it's awesome, man. Like getting to both teach children about history, right, and be that kind of role model. They also get to see sort of this other side of me, where they get to see that like I'm living out passions too. And so that's something that like I stress to all of my students all the time is like you're allowed to have like a job that pays your bills and still do things that you love. And that's been just a huge eye opener for me because I get to experience both my passions, kind of hand in hand with both teaching and with playing in the band. So
yeah,
that's been wild.
And growing up now, being in college, like teachers have lives too. Like they don't just like live in the school and grade your tests. Yeah. Like they have fun. Like they're human.
Yep.
They're
they
human.
Have fun and they're people, and it's sort of an eye opener, and it's cool because kids will come back to school, if they come out to a show and they're like, oh, I got to see Mr. Gephart play a show this weekend, and like I've had kids show up wearing like my band's T-shirt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like it's so cool, man. So cool.
Oh man, if only we had a teacher that was that cool in my high school. Oh man, I was probably like one of only 10 students in that whole school who wore like punk rock and metal T-shirts all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's cool too because like a kid that like I don't always know every interest that kids are in or whatever, but a kid shows up with a Metallica T-shirt on and it starts sort of like, oh hey, that's a really cool shirt, and you can kind of foster that conversation with them, and I've turned kids on to other bands and stuff, and sometimes now like teaching teenagers, I teach high school, so like they'll bring bands to me like, oh, have you ever heard of this band? You should check them out. I think you'll like them. And so getting to kind of foster that with them too is a really cool experience.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm really sure it is. It's fascinating because kids these days they only listen to rap, like rap and a bunch of pop songs. But you gotta love it when kids have old souls and listen to rock music.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the Swifties are strong for sure.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like they're a force all their own. One of the strongest fan bases in the world. But like, yeah, and I teach at a really rural school. So like there's a lot of kind of the more country kids, but there's also kids who exclusively listen to rap. And then, I think there's a lot of bands now that are really kind of pushing that envelope and the line between the line between genres now is so thin that like you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So we're gonna go down to the last couple of questions here. These are somewhat important. So
okay,
what was your furthest show you would say that you've performed at?
So our furthest show that we played was up at Rockfest in Cadott, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I think that was about a 6-hour drive for us, but that was our first big festival that we played. And we got to play right in between Lamb of God and Disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
Which are, like, to play a festival with other bands of that size and that caliber was insane for us. Like, when we're loading up our stuff on stage and Lamb of God, who's like one of my favorite metal bands, is literally playing 100 feet away from me. Like, that was insane to get to experience that. But that was definitely the furthest show we played. Over this summer, like when we did our little tour, we played Minneapolis, Minnesota. We went over and we played Council Bluffs. We went down and we played Kansas City, Missouri.
Ooh.
And so we're getting, a few hours away, at least branching out from like the Eastern Iowa thing. And I think that's really been kind of our goal over the last couple of years is like, hey, we need to get to some new places, make some friends with some bands in those places, because you can only do the Eastern Iowa thing so long, right? Like for our first few years as a band, we were jumping between Iowa City, Des Moines, the Quad Cities, and Waterloo, and we would just do that circuit over and over and over again. So now to kind of get into some new places, what's cool is like if we make friends with a band in Kansas City, for instance, we made really good friends with this band Barrage. They're awesome, and we invited them up to Iowa City to play a show, and they got to play in front of people they never would have played before. And then when we go to Kansas City, they have a show, and we play in front of people that would have never heard of us before. So that's really how you grow the scene, and that's how you kind of make those relationships, and that's been huge for us.
Right. Just to get a wider audience from different parts of the Midwest, and sooner or later you might even get a gig in California or on the East Coast. But
yeah, I would love that, dude. That'd be nuts.
Yeah. So you've been to the Quad Cities a few times. Have you ever played at the Raccoon Motel?
We have not. We have some friends bands that have played there before. In the past when we played the Quad Cities, we used to play at the Village Theater all the time.
Uh-huh.
We're in Davenport, and then we got to play the Rust Belt once, which was an amazing time. But yeah, so we've never gotten to play Raccoon Motel, but I hear it's a really cool spot.
Oh man, you have no idea. It is nuts there, man. You got to go. You have to go down there just for me. You got to do it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But yeah, so you've already told us one of your top 5 favorite places you've performed. Do you could you say like your top 3? Like what was your favorite place to tour?
Our favorite place that we've ever played. Personally, I mean, the Rust Belt's got to be number 1.
Okay.
The sound was the best sound we have ever had. It was the first time I got on a stage and I couldn't see the back of the crowd. Like there was that many people shoved in there that like I got up on stage and I was just completely blown away with the number of people standing there. That was incredible.
All right.
So to get up there and see that's definitely got to take my number 1 spot. Number 2, when we've done Chaos and the Cause, that's always at the Electric Park Ballroom in Waterloo. And that is a extremely historic venue. Like inside, you can see all the bands that have played there. So for instance, this is going back a lot farther, but like Elvis has played there, Johnny Cash played there in the 50s,
What?
Buddy Holly played there.
What?
So like just getting to stand on a stage that just these monumental, like huge acts have played, that is huge. And that was crazy. It's kind of a wild experience.
Wow.
That's number 2 for sure. And then number 3, for a similar reason, is probably Gabe's in Iowa City. Gabe's is one of our hometown spots, man. We play that venue all the time. And they've always been super cool to us. The staff's amazing. Similar, they're both owned by both Gabe's and Wildwood in Iowa City are owned by the same guy. That he has the same staff works both places. And so those being our hometown spots, we've gotten in really, really close with all of them. And it's for a similar reason as Electric Park, right? Like every band that I grew up listening to has played Gabe's. Most famously, like Nirvana played there before Nevermind came out. You know, like before their big album. And there's a picture of Kurt Cobain playing the stage that is still there. And every time we get to play Gabe's, whether there's 5 people there or whether there's 100 people there, like I'm standing on that stage going, Kurt Cobain freaking played here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. That's insane. I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's awesome. So we're going down to the last 2 questions here that I got for you. So what is the future of NonGrata? Are we getting another album, a new single release? Are we going to see more concert tours? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah, man. So we're kind of at a weird part of the year for us. Usually in the winter, we really slow down, and that's where we do the most of our writing and stuff like that. And we've been sitting on a few songs for about a year that we're just sort of waiting to finish up and hopefully write some more here. And honestly, the way music has been the last few years, I really think we're kind of pushing more towards the single and EP releases. You know, for us, like I love an album. Don't get me wrong, and I will listen to an album front to back if it's really, really good any day of the week. But I know for a lot of people, like it's really hard to find time to sit down and spend an hour listening to one album completely uninterrupted. And I teach high schoolers, and I teach teenagers. And if anybody knows kind of like the way music goes is those guys. They're more in touch with society and the way music goes more than anybody else. And they don't listen to music like that. You know, they make playlists of songs that they like on Spotify, and that's what they listen to all the time. It's the songs they like and whatever. They're picky and choosy, which is fine, you know. And for me, like, I love a good concept album. And for us, if we don't have some kind of unifying concept, for that reason, it doesn't really make sense to do a full album. But also, like, the cost of recording is insane, you know. So for us, it doesn't really make sense to go in and write and record 10, 11, 12 songs and put them all out at once. If the way that people listen to music, they're only going to really pick the one or two that they like the most anyway. And so for us, like, I'd rather spend more time making the songs we do have the absolute best they can be and putting those out one or two at a time. And that's the model we've been looking at so far, and that's really been working really well for us. And so for the future, that's probably what we'll stick on. So hopefully in the next year, we'll definitely get some more music out. I can't promise there'll be a full album or anything like that, but hopefully sometime in the future.
Yeah. I would totally love if we got some more music, man. You guys are extremely talented.
Well, thank you.
So I guess for the last question that I've asked, no matter who, every single time at the end of these, if you could tell all the young, aspiring musicians who are thriving and really want this to work and are super passionate about being a performer, a singer, a musician, whatever, what would you tell them right now?
My advice would definitely be, if you love it, do it. The minute that it stops being fun and it becomes work and it's not fun for you anymore, that's when it's time to hang it up. You know, for me, within the last year, there was definitely some times that I had to sit down and I had to really think about, like, is this something I want to keep doing? And that's not a feeling that really anybody wants to have about something they're passionate about. And for me, I just decided, you know, like, this is what I care about. This is what I want to keep doing, and this is what is important to me. And so if you have a passion for something, keep doing it. You know, whether we're playing to 5 people or 500 people, I love it every single time. And there's nothing I love more than getting on stage with my best friends and playing music that I love to listen to. That would be my advice, man. If you really care about it, just take the shot. And it's not going to happen overnight. You know, like, we're the perfect example of that. That if you want to play shows and you want to get in touch with all these other bands and stuff, you gotta do the work to get there. It's not just going to come. You have to kind of force it to, and you gotta put in the work to make it happen. So it's a lot of work, but the payoff is unlike anything else you could ever ask for.
I 100% agree with that. Don't make your passion into something you don't want to do anymore. That's extreme.
Absolutely.
That's
yeah. If it feels like work, right? Because, like, at the level we're at, we all have day jobs. You know what I mean? Like, those are work. You can be passionate about your job, but at the end of the day, like, that's what's paying your bills. That's what's keeping you afloat. But that's not your passion, right? That's not what you care about.
Right.
That's not who you are. Your job does not make you who you are. Your passions do, and what you care about makes you who you are. And so there's no reason you can't have a job and let that pay your bills, but also explore what makes you happy.
I 100% agree with that. Very strong words. So I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for being on the show with me. It's absolutely incredible to have you on the show with me.
I appreciate you having me, man. This is a great opportunity. Your show is great. Your questions are awesome. I'd love to get back on and talk with you again sometime.
I 100% agree with that. We are definitely going to make that happen. But yes, thank you so much for joining me here today. We will see you next time.
Absolutely. Take care, man.
Yep. See you later. That will do it for this episode of Music with Mason. If you enjoyed, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting the like button, commenting down what you see next, who you want to see next, and what questions I should ask other people. And of course, share this with your friends, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it may be. Get this channel to a higher level, because these bands are extremely talented, and some of these bands you guys have probably never heard of before. And you are from Iowa. You might even be from all across the country, and you might not even know who these guys are. But you know, we still have the passion. We still have the wonderful passion to write music and produce it like every other band, and we have talent. But yes, thank you so much for joining me. We will see you guys next time.